You're listening to the Esoterics Podcast.
Greetings, everyone. This is Joe.
And this is Fiorelise. Welcome back to the Esoterics Podcast.
Yay. Welcome back. And today, you guys, it is a very special day. We are recording on Fiorelise's birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yay. And she looks all pretty too. Y'all can't see her, but she's got red lips on. She's going to go out with her mama and celebrate. So that's exciting. What, are you doing anything else for your birthday?
I think we're going to do something tonight, but my only request was I don't want to plan anything. I don't want to plan my birthday. I'm done.
Okay, who's planning it then, Mike?
It's Mike's. Yeah. It's
okay. Well, is he a good planner? He seems like he's a good planner.
He's pretty good. He's good when he puts his mind to it. Yeah.
All right. Okay, good. Then we'll get the scoop next week to find out what he did.
Yes.
Hopefully it involves food.
As long as I get my C's candy, nuts and chews, I'm happy.
C's candy, that's your thing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
C's?
Nuts and chews specifically.
Nuts and chews. And you get that every year?
Yes.
C's candy is made in Michigan, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, is it?
I think so. I'm pretty sure.
I know they have a factory in LA, but I thought they were from all over. I don't know.
All right. Well, you know what? It's not super.
Oh, you know
important.
What? Speaking of, I know. Going back to last week. Speaking of Googling things, you were asking about the prefix "goody."
Yes, and I cover that in the podcast.
Oh, okay.
In the episode, yeah. But tell me what you came up with.
Oh, just that it was originally a way to a polite form of addressing a woman, and it is short for good wife.
That's exactly what it is. Yes. But see, I remember it being like a prefix, like good, because I thought, well, that's weird, and also, I would hate to be called like Goody Figueroa. I'd be so pissed. I'd be like, what are we doing here? Let's not do that. And he can never call me that again.
So did you find out where C's is from?
No. I mean, no. Plus the clicking, this microphone picks up all that stuff, and the clicking makes me.
I'm pretty sure it's from LA. Yeah, it's from LA.
It's not based in, or it's not original. Okay. Well, maybe that's another candy company that I'm thinking of.
Maybe it is.
It's probably because, there's lots of candy companies in Michigan, I would assume. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What else is going on with you? Anything recently? What happened? What's happened?
We had my daughter's party this last weekend.
How was that?
It was good. It was nice. I think she had a good time. We got her a guitar, a shiny red guitar. So.
Oh, shut up! That's fantastic.
Yeah, so she was really happy.
I love that. How long has she been playing?
A few years. She's been playing my old guitar that I got when I was like 13, and I literally never really learned how to play.
Mm-hmm. Right. But you got to keep it because,
Right. But she's used it way more than I ever did. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so she's been playing for probably like 3 years now, 4 years. And she took guitar class in high school, and she really likes it. So it was definitely something that we knew she was going to use. It wasn't just on a whim. So no, totally worth it.
A couple of years ago, every year I typically pick a new skill to learn just for the hell of it, right? Even if I don't do it, I've done things like henna tattoo, and one year I picked guitar because my uncle, who's passed over, was a badass guitar player. So I used his guitar, which was way oversized for me, but I came to realize that my fingers are too short. It was just very uncomfortable, and as a guitar player you have to have like long spindly fingers. You don't have to, but
it's better.
It's helpful. So it sucked, but I learned to play a couple things like the opening riff for Seven Nation Army. Something super easy. That's pretty much it. But guitar is cool.
Yeah, I learned like a Radiohead song once, like the intro to a Radiohead song that was like the as far as I ever got, and it was like the easiest, like 3 chords, and it was
Right.
the easiest thing in the world.
What else have you played any other instrument?
When I was like 9, I learned how to play the accordion.
What?
It's totally random. It's the most random instrument. Yeah.
And it produces a lovely sound. No, it's the worst instrument out there.
It's so annoying. No,
it's horrible.
it's right up there with the recorder. I would say the recorder is probably one of the worst. I don't think the recorder should be an instrument, but
poor recorder. It gets a better. So I learned how to play the recorder, and then I switched to God, what did I play? Wasn't the trombone? It was the smaller one. The trumpet? That what's the smaller little trombone type one?
The saxophone, the trumpet.
Sax.
It wasn't. I don't know.
Clarinet. Oh, it's the clarinet. That's what it was.
Oh,
yeah. And I like right now I can taste the reed, the flavor, the taste of the reed. But anyway, so I lasted maybe a month. My mom was so pissed. She's like, I paid like $300 way back a long time ago for this instrument, and you don't want it. I'm like, I'll sell it, right? Because as a kid, you don't give a shit. You're like, it sucks to be you, but I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Our daughter, our oldest, she played. I don't even remember what it was, but I remember we did a rental because she did not stick with music at all. So I'm like, I'm not buying you anything until you actually show interest. Like right now, Santino's he signed up for band, and he's playing, he signed up for drums, for percussion, but they start them off with a xylophone.
Oh,
which is really cool. It's really cute.
Yeah.
But I'm like, we're not buying him anything until he actually shows that he wants to do it.
Absolutely. I mean, there's very few things that I've stuck with my entire life. Very few things. I can't even really think of one, to be honest. But I mean, other than jewelry making, I think that's the thing. That's the one thing that's been constant ever since I was a little girl, and I would tear apart like old jewelry and then put it back together to make new pieces. Yeah. Other than that, that's pretty much it. But that's
I've always liked cooking. I think is probably the only thing I've done since I was like able to. Other than that, interest in like candles.
Oh, that's cool. So have you made candles, like homemade candles?
I've never made my own. No.
Oh, that would be really cool.
I want to make my own wax melts for the Scentsy warmers, because I still don't, as much as I love candles, I don't like the responsibility of candles.
No, like you mean you have to watch them so they don't burn the house down?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and also that Scentsy, oh my God, that scent, that amber scent, right? You sent some home with me. Oh my God, that stuff is so good. Yeah. Is it still discontinued?
Was it the vanilla suede?
It was like suede or cashmere or something like that.
Yes, the vanilla. Yeah, but I always have a backstock.
Freaking Bath and Body Works does it too. It pisses me off. Like you'll get this scent and you love it, and it's like your signature scent, and then they'll be like, "Sorry, we're taking it away."
How they hook you?
I know, but they don't. I don't play their game because I don't buy the new shit. Who am I hurting? Them? No, I don't care.
I wait till it goes on clearance.
So today's episode is the second episode of our spooky season October series on witches and witchcraft and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah. So who are we talking about today?
This week, we're going to talk about Tituba. Tituba, you touched on her in last week's episode. And I had said Tituba was a badass. And today we're going to find out why. Badass in the sense of she didn't let anybody tell her how shit was going to go down. So that's how what we're going to do.
Awesome.
All right.
Can't wait.
All right. So we start off with this episode with a quote. "The devil came to me and bid me serve him." Tituba Indian was an enslaved woman who was one of the first people to be accused of witchcraft during the Salem trials of 1692 through 1693. And I didn't realize they were only a year, so that's kind of new information. But what makes her so unique is how she proved to be a true spellcaster as she talked her way out of imprisonment and death. She used the fear of witchcraft and mass hysteria, and it sort of paralyzed the people of Salem. Yeah. She delivered this really imaginative testimony during her examination. So she wasn't actually on trial, but she was examined. And that testimony detailed her brush with the devil, and it incited this hunt that ultimately freed herself from slavery. So she's like, I'm going to use these people's fear against them.
Okay.
And her account, the way that she told her story was just oddly horrific because, back in the day, they were all Puritans and they, thee and thou'd bullshit, right? And
right. Yeah.
She was like, oh no, we're going to get real, y'all. So the citizens of Salem, like, they just couldn't believe it. And they were like, or they couldn't not believe her. Mm-hmm. She delivered this sordid and detailed account about how a tall man in a dark coat ordered her to hurt the children, and if she didn't, he threatened she would die. She even included her fellow suspects in her testimony, and as soon as she did this, the people of Salem, they were hooked. They're like, okay, we need to root this out. Who are all these people? They wanted names. They wanted titles. I mean, they wanted all the information. Okay. So Judge John Hathorne asked Tituba if she had seen the devil's book filled with the names of those that he, the devil, willed to do his bidding. And she said, nope. Okay, so I'm going to read this verbatim because I'm actually reading testimony.
Okay.
But she talks very oddly, so I'm going to read it like she talks. She said, no, he no let me see, but he tell me I should see them the next time. She also claimed there were some in Boston and some here in this town, but he would not tell me who they were. She was really selective when she gave detailed, right? But with reason. She would liberally describe the devil, but she was vague when she was naming other people. This made her even more valuable, like this valuable source of information to these terrified people. Again, they needed her to point fingers, offer explanations, save her town. Like, they wanted detail. And so they're like, okay, we need to keep Tituba on ice because we need more. Because apparently the devil's telling her shit. All right, so let's talk about her history because it's kind of it's kind of cool. So she has been described as being Native American. She's been described as being half Native, half Black, and even entirely African. Nobody really knows, but the majority of the reports claim that Tituba was born in the Arawak tribe of Venezuela, where she was captured as a child, taken to Barbados as a captive, and then sold into slavery. So it was in Barbados when she was a young teen that her life fell into the hand of Reverend Samuel Parris, Salem's Puritan minister, who bought her to help maintain his household in Salem. He was not married at the time, and I don't know if he did marry eventually, but he was a single man. There was also reports that he bought her as his concubine, which is kind of creepy because it looks like she was actually purchased between the ages of 12 and 17. So he was a creepy old puritanical minister perv, apparently. Years later, she married an enslaved man named John Indian. Seriously, how many indigenous people do you know named John? I was like, these people.
Yeah.
And so together they had a daughter, Violet.
Okay.
All right. So listen, this shit show does have a starting point. So let's get into what exactly happened and why she was accused in the first place. It literally is so fucking dumb. It's so dumb. All right, so Paris's daughter Betty and her cousin Abigail Williams, they were fucking around playing a fortune-telling game that involved dropping an egg into a glass of water. Supposedly, the form that the egg took in the water would help predict whom the girls would marry in their future lives. Okay, but soon after, they began experiencing strange fits. They complained of pain. They started barking like dogs, babbling and crying hysterically. So Tituba's like, okay, man, I need to help these girls. So you touched on this in your episode. She baked a witch cake.
Yeah.
It's a form of counter magic used to identify suspected evil. And so in cases of mysterious illnesses or possession, witch hunters would take a sample of the victim's urine. They would mix it with this rye meal, and then they would bake it into a cake. And then this was then fed to the dog, who was the familiar, or animal helper,
Alleged
or whatever.
familiar of the
Alleged, right? All right. So in the hope that the animal would reveal the name of the guilty sorcerer. All right. Well, surprisingly enough, that failed.
Sure.
What was the dog going to be like? Let's sit down. Let's
First
talk
of all,
about
that
this.
poor dog. Poor dog.
The dog's like, what the fuck is this? All right. So since that failed to work, Tituba's knowledge of spells and folk remedies was later used as evidence against her when she was accused of being a witch.
Of course.
Yeah. That's the original version of fucking around and find out. Tituba, sorry. That's what happened there.
That sucks. Yep.
So in the meantime, Paris, the dad, the reverend, he was pissed when he found out. So Betty and Abigail, they threw Tituba under the bus. So Paris was actually an abusive asshole, but he was a man of God. So, of course, he beat her until she confessed. Even though Tituba claimed she never wanted to hurt Betty, she loved her and was only trying to help. Okay, right. But then that little asshole Betty threw her under the bus. Betty, you're dead to me. You're dead to me. I don't care. Yeah. So eventually the girl's symptoms took a turn for the worse, okay? They continued to babble and bark and do all the crazy things. And so at that point, that's when they accused Tituba of bewitching them. Okay, so that's how it started.
Okay.
She was the first accused to confess to witchcraft in Salem. Okay. And now there are many reasons why she confessed. Lots of people talking about all sorts of stuff like, why would she confess? But the most popular reason is thought to be to avoid further punishment. Because a lot of times that happened when people, when they were accused, they would say, yep, that's me. I'm the witch. And then they were like, okay, well, you just need to repent and all that stuff and you'll get off scot-free.
Right.
But as a slave with no social standing, she had no money or personal property in the community. She had nothing to lose by confessing to the crime and probably, like I said, knew that a confession would save her life. Also, it's not really known what religion she practiced, but if she wasn't a Christian, she didn't really have any fear of going to hell for being a witch like the other Puritans did.
Right. Which is probably why they didn't want to confess in the first place.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And she was like, I don't care.
Yeah, I don't give shit. It's not real anyway. Yeah.
So she was adamant, though, that her rituals were not intended for harm. Adamant. She denied any malicious intent, and she denied actually being a witch, claiming that the magic she learned from her mistress in Barbados was for protection from evil, which I have no doubt that it absolutely was, because
isn't
that what voodoo is? Is voodoo's protection magic? I mean, I know it can be.
I don't know.
No, okay. We don't.
I don't know much about
voodoo or any of that. So
I can't pretend to know anything.
Okay, that's good. We don't talk out our ass here.
Well, I would love to have somebody on though.
I know
who. Yeah, I did meet. Awesome. I did meet someone who she's a hoodoo practitioner, and but those are two. Just the way she explained it to me, it was two very separate things. But hoodoo is more of what it sounds like Tituba would have practiced, because it is more underground. It was underground. It was practiced by slaves. It was a way for them to preserve their practices. Yeah, so it's more likely that it was hoodoo rather than voodoo.
So we need hoodoo. And also hoodoo practitioners are probably very well versed in the difference between voodoo and hoodoo. So that hoodoo practitioner could actually, school us on voodoo. So, we'll put that on the list, guys. We will talk to a hoodoo practitioner. And if any of you know anybody, please forward them to us. Send us an email, esotericpodcast@gmail.com. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so Tituba also made a shocking confession that she had been approached by Satan. So she's standing, sitting on whatever in front of all of the people or whatever, the judge, and he's questioning her, examining her, they keep calling it. And she says, "Well, listen, I did hang with Satan." But then she said she also hung with Sarah Good and Goody Osborne, and they had all agreed to do his bidding as witches. So they formed this little coven. And then this is where Goody is an informal and shortened version of Goodwife, like you said, to indicate an older married woman in the late 17th century Massachusetts. It's like a woman of higher standing would be addressed as mistress, and then of lower social status as Goody. So,
okay.
I think Goody is a terrible prefix. I would be like, no, don't call me that.
And in 2022, you don't want to be anyone's mistress.
You don't want to be anyone.
It's funny how times have changed.
I know, mistress. Wait, what? What are you calling
It used
me?
to be a compliment, and now it's like, whoa. Yeah.
No, right? Okay, so to this day, there is really no proof as to whether or not she actually practiced any sort of magic. And there's absolutely no reason to believe that her confession was authentic. The only thing that we have is transcripts of her testimony. So I just want to look at a little bit of her crazy confession. When she was questioned by Judge Hathorne, she gave, this is basically what she said. All right. Hathorne: "Tituba, what evil spirit have you familiarity with?" She says, "None." He says, "Well, why did you hurt these children?" She says, "I didn't hurt them." He goes, "Well, who did that?" She said, "The devil, for all I know." "Did you see the devil?" "The devil came to me and bid me serve him." "Who else have you seen?" "4 women, sometimes they hurt the children." "Who are they?" "Goody Osborne and Sarah Good." "I don't know who the other are. Goody Osborne and Sarah Good would have me hurt the children, but I wouldn't. I also saw a tall man from Boston." "When did you see them?" "Last night in Boston." What'd I just say?
Well,
I would have answered these questions much differently. Okay, there's more. "What did you say to them? Did you hurt them?" "No, they hurt the children and then told me that if I didn't hurt the children too, they would hurt me." "Did you hurt them?" "Yes, but I won't do it anymore." "Are you sorry you hurt them?" "Yes." She seems very sorry.
These are very leading questions.
I mean, she's just telling him what he wants to hear. So
exactly, the interrogator. This sounds like a Trump interview. Where they feed him the questions. They throw him softballs.
The judge is a master interrogator.
He is definitely not Wicklander certified.
Oh my god. Okay, so that's all we have. Like the only reason that we know about Tituba in the first place is because she said, "Yep, I did it," and it was because the devil.
Yeah.
So her quote unquote dramatic testimony it convinced the people of Salem that this was not an isolated incident and that the devil had in fact actually invaded Salem. To them in that day, her testimony was riveting, and it explained away the symptoms that overtook Betty and Abigail, which that's true, right? Because it's like, okay, well, that's what happened to Betty and Abigail. So she spoke of other things too. She spoke of a witch's coven. She talked about conversations she had with evil pigs, evil dogs, and rats who all ordered her to do their bidding. She said,
poor animals.
I know, they're evil pigs.
They can't defend themselves. It's so rude.
No, they've been misaligned. What's it called? Slandered. She's slandering the local pigs, dogs, and rats.
You might as well blame a tree as well. Can't defend itself either.
Well, in a way she does. She says she talked of riding sticks to different places like a witch's broom.
Okay.
Right. So I'm wondering if that's where the witch's broom originated from, like that they ride brooms. The other thing that she said she saw Sarah Good and Goody Osborne transform into creatures with wings. Because remember, she's saying, yeah, we're all in a coven, but they're the evil ones, not me. So as a result, Tituba, Sarah Good, and Goody Osborne were all sent to jail in Boston to await trial and punishment. They were sent away in like 62 or 92, 1692. All right. So now the Salem witch trials would have ended with those 3 arrests, but the events of Tituba's questioning by Judge Hathorne sparked hysteria, and then that's what sparked the massive witch hunt. So as the trials spun further and further out of control, other women and men from surrounding villages were also being accused of practicing witchcraft and arrested. You touched on that. So Tituba, she used these accusations to stoke confusion in order to avoid punishment, sentencing. Yeah. The more she made herself valuable,
the less likely that they were going to do anything to her. Yeah.
The less likely. All right. So anyway, but because she did admit to witchcraft, she was jailed and sent to Boston to await trial. So she wasn't completely without punishment. So what this did was this sparked hysteria. So let's talk about the hysteria a little bit. So meanwhile, as more and more of these arrests piled up, Salem sort of descended into panic, and the accusations just spun out of control.
Yeah.
So as the trials and executions continued, colonists, they started to doubt that so many people could actually be guilty of this crime. They're like, come on, really?
It's
all these people? And then they started worrying and fearing that innocent people were being executed. And then, they got their local clergymen, behind it, and they started speaking out against the witch hunt. And they eventually persuaded officials to stop the trials. But Tituba, she still remains in jail to await her trial. So when public sentiment began to change and she's like, they don't believe this anymore. Then she recanted her confession. She said, it wasn't me. I didn't do it. I was forced to say this.
Yeah.
She told the magistrate that she made everything up after her master beat her, which he did.
Which he did, yeah.
In an attempt to force a confession. So... I think that's the actual truth. And she was just looking for a way out by saying, oh, yes, the devil told me do it.
Right.
But by then the trials, they had wound down, and the governor of Massachusetts had ordered the arrests to stop. All right. Okay. So this, her recanting, it pissed Paris off. So he retaliated by refusing to pay the jailer's fee to get her out.
Right. Which is what happened with a lot of people, is because they had what they called shackles fees. So even if you got arrested, so you've got detained, and then even if you ended up being proven innocent and got let go, if you couldn't pay those fees, you were stuck. And there were actual people that never got out or that died in prison because they couldn't pay the fees.
I mean, when you think about credit card fees being bullshit, talk about a bullshit fee. That's the worst fee of all.
Right. Or we talk about the bail system now, right? But it's kind of the same. It's the same idea.
I like how you elevated that for me. Thank you. I'm like, oh, well, yeah, there is a bail system that's a better representation of a bullshit fee. It's partnership here. It's partnership.
Yes.
All right. So anyway, so because she couldn't pay her fee, she spent another 13 months jailed in very, very, very poor conditions. And then the prisoners in there, it was everybody, they were Quakers, but they were also witches, pirates, murderers, rebels, debtors, right? But here's my favorite, and newspaper editors. The jailer must have been like Trump reincarnated.
You know, I really do think that people take for granted the fact that there is a free press.
Free press, right? Yep.
Yeah. And I know that people always talk about like, oh, the media is biased and it's always living in fear and all this shit. Well, yeah, because at the one side, they're still a business. But, you know, when a business pisses you off or someone does you wrong and you want to go public about it, what do? You go online and you go, you know, you try to contact some kind of broadcast, a media outlet, something to get the word out. And we have that privilege in America. So
yes.
yeah, let's not throw that away.
Right. But back then it was like, no, you know, you don't get to speak the truth, that sort of thing, you know? So anyway, so there she goes. She's in jail. She's like sucking. Life is sucking. It's the worst. So in April of 1693, she was sold to an unknown person for the price of her fees, her jailer fees, her shackle fees. Okay. It's likely that the same person bought her husband, John, because Puritans weren't really inclined to split up married couples, right? They're Puritans. They were really honored the institution of marriage, even slaves. But then at that point, it's unknown what happened to her after she began her life with her new owner. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. So despite her confessions, again, like I said, there's no proof that she did the things to which she confessed. So she was let out of jail, and that's the end of that. The end.
Yeah.
Of Tituba. Yeah. So to close it out, there's a couple things I want to talk about. First off, the fact that nobody really knows. Most everything that we knew about her comes from that court testimony she gave during the trials. And so since so little is known about her, her story is actually really easy to fictionalize. And so she became more popular in the years after due to literature and lore and all of that. The two she's listed like on Wikipedia. There's hundreds of references of her, but the two that I think are the coolest are an American Horror Story Coven, which is my absolute favorite season of that show.
Yes.
It's my favorite. The Queenie states that she is a descendant of Tituba.
Oh,
yes.
That's so cool.
Isn't that? And then later in the series, Voodoo Queen Marie Laveau and Supreme Fiona, they're sitting there having a talk, which is, you know, filled with, I'll mess you up. I'll mess you up. Don't mess me up. I love those two. They're like, don't fuck with each other. Anyway, so they had an in-depth discussion of Tituba's history and legacy, and they confirmed that her magic came from her Arawak ancestry in that. So, and then there's other things. There's the crucible. She's in a crucible, and then of course she's represented in all sorts of other things. But she's very cool. But in reality, she seems to have been like this marginal figure who's, had this like low societal status, and just put her in the perfect position to be accused of witchcraft in a town that was searching for answers. Yeah. Speaking of scapegoats, let's talk about that. So it was all too easy to scapegoat marginalized members of society, especially in puritanical, wherever the hell this took in Massachusetts.
Yes.
So I just wanted to point out the people of Salem associated supernatural practices. Everybody did. Everybody at that time associated supernatural practices like voodoo, hoodoo, and all of that with people of color and Indians. And the townspeople identified Tituba as both, right? Because again, we don't know what her true ethnicity was. Yeah. Sarah Good, who was arrested along with Tituba, she was destitute and she was a beggar. She actually had very little, and so they looked down on her. And then Goody Osborne, whose first name was actually...
the good time, right? Yeah, she was the good time
I think so. So there's all sorts of different things. So basically they said that she was involved with a dispute with her children over their dead father's estate. Okay. She also had frequent disputes with the Paris family, it's alleged. But then she also was known as having an affair or something. So and she was older too. I was like, how old is she? I mean, but then remember when you said that a lot of these victims were chosen because they had no family and relatives. And so then the accuser would take their stuff.
Yeah. Or they were widows. A lot of them were widows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all three of these women were perfect targets. And then the last thing, can we just back it up and talk about those two little assholes, Betty and Abigail? How did they get off scot-free, right? Because they were the ones originally who were fucking around with fortune telling and raw egg.
Right. They were doing witchcraft. Where did they learn it? You know,
where did they learn that, right? Witchcraft or, practices or whatever. So, they probably got salmonella that caused all the fits and pain from the raw eggs or whatever.
It's true.
Diarrhea. That's no joke. Diarrhea can cause barking like a dog.
They had food poisoning and they tried to blame it on witches.
Exactly. The other thing, because I was like, okay, well, what was it really then? Researchers were back at those. Actually, they use the term scholars. I'm like, here we go with the scholars again.
Mm-hmm.
But researchers believe the fits and hallucinations the Paris girls suffered were from contaminated rye flour and a microbial contamination. All right.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of poking holes in that because the dog ate the witch cake, not the girls, even though the girls probably did eat the rye flour if it was used in like their everyday baking and stuff.
Yeah, I had talked about this, but the thing, the biggest hole in that theory is the fact that the Puritans themselves were very familiar with rye, and so it's not something that they would have just overlooked, that their rye was like rotten or that there was something wrong with it. Like they would have noticed because it was a staple in their diet in bread making. So it's not. Yeah, it didn't make sense.
No, it doesn't make sense. So I think that these scholars were grasping, but it still begs the question: what actually was going on with Abigail and Betty? What was the real reason? It's not normal to bark like a dog and writhe in pain and all of those things. So you look at it going, what's up? What's up, girls? What's going on? Why is this happening?
One of the theories, though, was that they were making it up. Well, that is because children weren't allowed to do anything. Like they weren't allowed to play. They were just there to work. So they were probably bored. But at the end of the day, like as much as, it sucked. And there were these two little girls who, whether they made it up or they were actually feeling, having those symptoms, it's the fucking adults,
Yep. Yeah.
It's their fault.
And I, as opportunistic as Tituba was when accused with, or, faced with jail time or worse, death, I don't blame her for saying, I'm going to capitalize on this. I think it was very clever. It was very smart. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And ultimately she did. She came out. She lived. We hope she and John lived a happy life, with whoever purchased her, enslaved her. Can't gloss over that. She was still a slave.
Right.
So, who knows? We just don't know. But I thought she was really interesting. There are tons of witches or the accused that have been focused on over the years. Lots of stories out there, especially right now during spooky season. I just saw a couple on Instagram. And it says right on their tombstones, hanged 1693. And it's like, oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Got right to the point on those tombstones.
Yeah. It's sad.
Anyway, so there we go. Everybody knows about Tituba now.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Do you have anything for the closing vibe?
I don't.
No? Okay.
Not today.
Not today? All right, we're just going to skip that.
All right, everyone. You can find us on all the socials under Esoterics Podcast, and be sure to join our Facebook community, the Esoterics Community, to hear firsthand about our services, events, and courses, as well as access woo-friendly resources, energy updates, group-only pricing, and occasional card pulls and freebies.
Excellent, excellent. You'll also find support and information for developing your own spiritual intuitive abilities, as well as daily practices. And I'm really, really, really getting into moon phases lately, so I'm going to try to do some moon phases. I'm going to really try hard to be consistent, but So thank you again for inviting us into your life. As always, stay mystical, magical, and ready to do it again the next time we all get together. Bye.